It was supposed to be the perfect evening. Burgers sizzling guffaws echoing through the yard cups, clinking in toast. But when Jake Carter rotated ribs on his old barbecue grill, tires squealed and Sandra Mitchell shrieked, "Shut this soiree down now," screaming from the curb. Heads turned around. The carefree atmosphere snapped. Sandra stormed in through the gate, clinging to her HOA rules book like a badge, her face smirking, eyes raking like an animal. Jake laid down. His spatula was already depleted. "Sandra," he sighed, forcing a smile. "It's a neighborhood barbecue. Everybody's invited. We're not breaking rules." Sandra's eyes narrowed. "You didn't submit a special event permit with the HOA." She teased, poking the air. "Page 47, this party is illegal." The neighbors complained in shock. Jake's friend Tom Ellis laughed. "Come on, Sandra, lighten up, we're having fun." Her smile went icy. "Fun doesn't excuse rule breaking." "I'll call the authorities," Sandra. Jake started, irked. The authorities think you're funny," she snapped. "Well, see when the HOA police come." She stormed off, phone in hand. Jake rolled his eyes, grumbling. "HOA police? What's she calling an army of clipboard grannies?" The party guests laughed. 15 minutes later, as Jake distributed sliders, two men in gaudy uniforms marched in shirts reading HOA police. In huge letters, badges glinting like dollar store toys. "Parties over." One growled. "You're violating HOA code 13.4, unlawful assembly." The crowd grumbled, some laughing. "The imposters puffed 5 minutes to move out, or you're funning," the other threatened, brandishing a marker-drawn ticket book. Sandra appeared behind them, smirking. "I warned you, Jake. Now you'll follow HOA regulations." Jake, speechless, then angry, produced his sheriff's badge. "It's gold shining." "Gentlemen," he said flatly, "drop those fake badges or I'll arrest you for impersonating a law officer." The officers froze, going white. Sandra's smirk vanished. "Whoa, let's not go wild." One stuttered, stepping back. The other threw his notebook over the fence and ran his partner, tripping over a chair in flight. Sandra gawked while Jake stuffed his badge. "Next time, bring real cops." Into his pocket, the crowd erupted with laughter. Sandra flushed, stormed off, but Jake felt uncomfortable. Authorizing fake officers wasn't just childish, it was planned. Next morning, Jake sipped coffee and delved into rumors Sandra had been misusing her HO role, finding residents for fake violations. An elderly couple paid hundreds for a non-compliant mailbox that looked just like all the rest. Another was received, built for bushes they did not own. Jake's instincts were aroused. This was a scam. He stopped by neighbors, gathering stories. "Mrs. Harper related those two men at your party. I've seen them with Sandra's cousin, Victor Reed, at his construction company." Victor was a shady contractor known for cheap suspect work. If Sandra was involved with him, it made sense a lot. Jake set a trap. Another party, this time with his deputies, helped guests behaved rowdy, taunting Sandra. She arrived, rulebook in hand. "You're violating HOA code 17.2, excessive noise. I've called the HOA police." The bogus officers came back, but Jake's disguised deputies handcuffed them on the lawn. Sandra yelled. But a fallen folder exposed ledgers, names, addresses, phony fees. She stammered, "That's not mine." Then ran slipping into Jake's pool with a splash. Soaking the crowd, Jake smiled at his deputy. Caught every second on tape, he declared Sandra's reign was through. But Jake was aware there was more to it. Sandra's confidence indicated a bigger plan. He visited the records office, uncovering Victor's firm, linked with dozens of unnecessary repairs, all approved by Sandra fines. Due to the repairs, cracked sidewalks, broken fences were padded with Victor, charging extra, and most likely splitting profits with Sandra at Mrs. Harper's. She assured Sandra targeted vulnerable residents, seniors, busy families, threatening city reports. If they did not pay, those who protested got warnings for fake infractions, referring repair jobs to Victor. The scam had harvested thousands, some neighbors paying in fear. Jake accrued affidavits and evidence over days. Knowing the fake officers were pawns, he wished Victor to shatter at the Wilson family home. Common victims of Sandra's sanctions. Jake organized another loud party, music, balloons, chairs on sidewalks. Sandra arrived with Victor. "This house violates HOA rule," she bellowed. Victor added, "My crew will fix it tomorrow." Jake entered. What are you fixing, Victor? Sandra snatched. This is HOA protocol, Jake responded. I inspected nothing in terms of balloons or chairs, but I found payments to Victor's company, a deputy recorded as. Victor panicked. I just obeyed Sandra's demands. I hadn't the least idea that it was a forgery. Sandra hissed, you idiot. Jake presented his evidence statements, photos, fake invoices. This is enough for fraud charges, he said. Sandra screamed, this is harassment, but was escorted off with Victor. Word spread, Sandra's reign ended. But days later, Tom called threatening letters, and Sandra's tone appeared demanding fines, claiming she still controlled the HOA. One threatened the Caldwells over a porch light past 10 p.m. Jake reassured them, but suspected Sandra had help at Victor's old office. Jake found new fake letters requiring cash to impede freezing at Jake's badge. I just aided Victor with paperwork, he stammered. Jake pressed. You're keeping Sandra's scam going. Eddie bolted. Jake chased him through alleys, tackling him at a fence at the station. Eddie confessed Victor promised him a cut to deliver letters. Sandra orchestrated from jail using Victor's contacts to retain influence. Eddie gathered the P.O. box payments that night. Jake informed neighbors the scam was ended. No more payments. Some were still suspicious, scarred by Sandra's control. Jake visited her in jail. She scoffed. You think you've won? My lawyer's cutting me a deal. No deal, Jake said. Frank and Eddie are talking. You're done. Don't come back. Her smile faded that weekend. Jake hosted a barbecue grills. Laughter, no threats. Kids played. Neighbors smiled the air light. Tom grinned. You should be HOA president. Jake laughed. I'll stick to sheriff across the street. Sandra's house was a for sale sign. New family moved in weeks later, and the park became a gathering spot. Jake, dubbed sheriff of the HOA, kept peace one day. Mrs. Harper thanked him for bringing the community together. A car drove by Sandra speeding away. Not looking back, she won't be back, Mrs. Harper said. Jake nodded. If she does, we're ready. The sun set, kids played. Neighbors waved. Sandra's shadow was gone, replaced by a stronger, closer